Hello and welcome to the Week 15 show, SCP Cafe Recap Podcast. I'm your host, Blue Soul, SCP Wiki moderator, chat operator, subreddit moderator, author, loving husband, dog petter, clone aficionado, Tottenham Hotspur supporter, toe stubber. I think I broke my toe today. If you ever get a chance to break your toe, I suggest not doing it. Anyway, we have a really good show lined up this week. I'm really excited about a number of these. Before I get there, though, have a couple of things I want to run through very quickly. First off, on the Spotify front, thank you all. We are at 10,000 plays. Hit that just 2 days ago, and super excited. That's a number that I really wanted to see this week, and got it. So that's really cool. Appreciate the support there. Over on Apple Podcasts, in the last 2 months, had over 600 hours of the podcast consumed by you guys. This is all really cool. As I'm getting more of a following, I'm getting deeper analytics made available. So I'm able to see, make some interesting conclusions based on the numbers that I'm getting. Additionally, I had indicated on the store side of things that I was going to have some new merchandise arriving today, some pins. They showed up 2 days ahead of schedule. They look sick. They look incredible. So they're little 1-inch soft enamel pins. They're a really good size if you want to wear them on a lapel, if you want to have a little subtle thing, black and white. There's going to be pictures available on the scp.cafe website by the time you get to see this podcast. So go check it out. They are available on the cafe store, $7.95, and I actually have also, for the time being, stopped sale of 2 shirts. The icon design, which I hadn't sold any of, so not a big deal, but it has not proven to be quite what I wanted. The thing doesn't do well in the dryer. You take it out and it's just a little wrinkly, and despite my best efforts in engineering a fix for it, I've not been able to yet. So I'm not happy with it. I don't want to sell something I'm not 100% happy with and willing to wear on my own. So if you liked that design, I'm sorry to say I am not willing to sell it for now. I want to do something with it and make it a bit more robust and able to handle something as, evil and rough on shirts as, the household dryer. So we'll get there, I'm confident. But for the time being, I want to do the right thing. I don't want to sell something I don't back. And it will not be available for now. But what will be available is the Epsilon 11 Nine-Tailed Fox shirt. That will be going up very shortly. That design is by the incomparable Sunny Clockwork, who will be receiving 15% of gross profits from all purchases of this shirt through the Support the Artists program at the SCP Cafe store. Additionally, 5% of all sales will support Project Foundation via the Support the Wiki program on the SCP Cafe store. So keep an eye out for those. I'm excited about both of those things. Additionally, I have new access cards that I'm going to be putting up as well. They do not require a picture like the current one does. These are very simple Site-19 access cards. I say very simple. Actually, I like the look of them quite a lot. They have little subtle touches to them that I think look really good. Responses so far from people I've shared it with have been pretty much universally positive. So those are going up as well. You can find links to the designs for all of these actually in the chat for SCP Cafe. If you go to scp.cafe and click the chat button across the top of the menu, you can see in the topic of the chat room a link to a gallery with a couple of designs, including everything that I have just discussed. And take a look. In the meantime, we are going to get into it. Week 15, we had 19 skips make it up to my selection time, and 17 of them in scope. So I have narrowed that down to 5 pieces here, and we're going to kick things off with SCP-4128, titled Action Comics #1, written by An Amazing Fantasy. So this is cool. In doing my research for this particular skip, this is a first-timer piece. And the title, Action Comics #1, if you're not too deep into comic book nerddom, it is a very famous comic. It is the first comic featuring Superman, dating back to the late 30s. It is the most sought after comic in the world and has sold for millions of dollars. So I have high hopes and a certain set of expectations for it just based on the title. The image we are greeted with is apparently a mugshot, according to the work. It indicates mugshot was taken after initial Site-88 containment. It is man looks to be maybe in his 40s, dark hair and a stubbly goatee. I like the format of this. We have a little Foundation logo in the bottom right, and up top at the left, above the guy's head, we have date of recovery. That's black boxed out with 2018 as the year. Site holding is Site-88, Floor 18, HCC number 16, and an object class of Euclid. I don't know what HCC is, but the procedures immediately tell you that stands for Humanoid Containment Cell. That makes perfect sense. We have certain adjustments that have to be made to this containment cell, that walls are to be constructed using modular concrete panels made from a proprietary blend of concrete and additives for extreme strength. Each panel should measure 30 centimeters in width, and is advised that these panels be lined with polyurethane with viscoelastic properties. A Class 2 Titan vault door is to be installed in replacement of the standard cell entryway. I don't know what that is, but the name alone does a good job of telling you it's probably pretty tough. And a standard ventilation is to be installed with a separated gas supply system, and in the event of a containment breach, the system will dispense a Class B SNA, which is immediately followed with sedative nerve agent in parentheses. This is a small gripe, but one that I think a lot of people would share, is that if you're going to invent an acronym, it may be better to go about it the other way around. Introduce the spell it, like give us what the thing is, and then if you want to use an acronym for it later, that may make more sense. But doing it twice, where you have the initialism and then spelling it out, I don't know. I for something about it, I don't really care for the look of it, and it doesn't buy you anything at all. We also have in the procedures that transport teams should be equipped with an administrative anesthetic in the form of a gaseous agent. That's a little wordy, and you could probably get away with something more in the vein of should be equipped with an aerosolized anesthetic. Does the job, and we don't need to. We might want to get a little more specific for the purposes of how strong, what does it need to do? The guy's obviously very strong, so does the anesthetic need to be of a similar composition? Because as it is, we have no indication of how strong the anesthetic needs to be. And that's a bit lacking when we are laying out procedures that indicate exactly how we need to contain this thing. We then go to say that the skip is currently held within Site-88 on the 18th floor, and an on-site psychiatrist should conduct a full psych eval check every 2 weeks. The skip is described as a human male formerly known as Samson Sachs, who claims to be 108 years old despite appearing to be middle-aged, and we've confirmed through saliva-based testing that it is, in fact, a human. And the skip's most notable anomalous property is incredible strength and endurance. He's capable of lifting 3,500 kilograms with ease and shows great effort when lifting over 20,000 kilograms. That's a lot. Additionally, the skip can sprint at a top speed of approximately 85 kilometers an hour and perform an 18-meter vertical leap. That's a fucking leap and a half right there. The epidermic cells of the entity are formed of a polymeric protein, and I glossed over something here. I'm going to go back and read this because this is something that I mentioned. I've mentioned a few times. The epidermic cells of the entity appear to be formed from a polymeric protein, giving the entity an innate ability to withstand extreme physical trauma. If it appears to be and is use the is rather than it appears to be. Because when you say appears to be and it is, we had a moment of it appears to be this, but it's actually that. We don't do that here. So we just have it appears to be, and for all intents and purposes, it may as well be. The skip's bones are 8 times denser than that of the average human. We have a footnote here that says this is most likely a case of sclerostiosis. That fairly self-explanatory up to this point. We have a discovery log that we first found out about the skip in 1975 through the Foundation's Anomalous Signature Recognition Program. So we had basically machine learning Foundation algorithms to detect anomalous phenomena when we had correlating reports of a man performing impossible feats of strength. And what we had was a semi-accident in Belgium. A woman had lodged half of her car under a semi, and while awaiting first responders, a man described as wearing a red coat approached the vehicle and proceeded to pull it out by the frame. We have a footnote here by Red Coat saying that this is a common identifier of the skip, and he's reported to have worn this coat in approximately 70% of all documented incidents. That's not terribly relevant to the work, honestly. It is a nice little nod as we go further, but the approximately 70%, maybe there's a reference that I'm not getting or some, inner tie, but as it is, I don't know if that's worth really bringing up, much less as a footnote as it's done here. We set up a cover story for this nonetheless, and we indicated that it was an instance of hysterical strength, which is really incredible stuff. If you want to take a break from this and go look up instances where people have legitimately lifted cars and done other things in a sheer feat of raw adrenaline and panic. I've seen videos of, a guy, not remotely trained, not remotely impressive looking, lifting a car to get, a child out from under it. Really fascinating stuff. All of the limits that, the body sort of puts on itself when, during your day to day. But if sufficiently provoked, the human body's capable of some really amazing stuff. In any event, we tried to find this guy for 48 years and finally recovered him in 2018 in Brooklyn. And we have a recovery incident document that is alluded to at the end. It is the last of 4 collapsibles, because we have evidence documentation below this that goes into a few different events where we have the skip has, sort of shown his abilities. We have an incident where the man freed a woman kept in a basement chained to the wall by breaking the chains with his bare hands. We had an incident where somebody attempted to stab the guy and the knife didn't pierce his skin. There's an image of a knife with a pretty gnarly, about 45-degree bend in it, about an inch long. We have another incident of a man, apparently 4 guys in a car, 3 armed with handguns and 1 with a shotgun, stuck on top of the roof of an abandoned factory. And there's an image of just a little tiny image of a guy lifting a car over his head a good 30 feet off the ground. So pretty cool setup here. We also have a man with a broken arm, and so we go out of that log to an addendum, and this addendum, it doesn't help the work. The entirety of it says, it is currently theorized that SCP-4128 is affected by a rare case of myostatin-related muscle hypertrophy, a condition caused by a mutation in the MSTN gene. SCP-4128 appears to possess an amplified form of this genetic malfunction. The issue I have with that is that we have an object class of Euclid, and we just explained the skip. I've been sandboxing an idea along these lines for an explained class skip using taking certain existing genetic cases out to their extreme end. And if you had something that was 6 or 7 standard deviations from the mean. It could still happen once in a lifetime, and you could end up with something like this. The thing is, it's no longer Euclid at that point. If we should at this point, that we've got the guy in our containment, and there's nothing to say we couldn't do testing to confirm or deny this. So having just the theory but nothing beyond that it's not great. I get why you want to do it, that, he's just a man, but we probably don't need to consider them Euclid at that point. We could consider them explained, and if you still want to go with an object class for the sake of like risk, should they breach containment, then I get it, but we largely just explained the skip, and that's not reflected in the object class that we chose. Moral of the story is be careful. People will downvote on principle if they think you've got the object class wrong. Doesn't matter how good the rest of the work is. Anyway, we go from this to a couple of interview logs, and we start to get an idea of who this man is, and appears to be born in 1910 in the outskirts of a little town in Ohio, and had his first real interaction and discovery of abilities at a very young age. It could pick up a recliner probably like age 3 or whatever. It's actually not elaborated on, and that's okay. The first time that he discovered, or I shouldn't say discovered, intentionally used his strength on another person was during a shoplifting or an armed robbery incident in I guess this would be 1928. Guy pulls out a gun. He was shot, fell, but got back up, saw the old shopkeeper lying on the floor, died of a heart attack, actually, probably induced by the stress, chased after the guys, since they took the old man's, they took the guy's truck, and eventually did catch them on the outskirts of town, and wasn't thinking, picks up a tin can, throws it, and apparently it was bad. this super strength applied to can, thrown at head, is not spoken what exactly happened, but threw up in the resulting aftermath quite a bit. He talks for a while with the son of the dead shopkeeper, and asks where our skip's from, and he replies an alien planet, and the guy apparently bought it hook, line, and sinker, said he wouldn't tell anyone, and it was a repayment for avenging his father, and got the guy's name. His name was Jerry Siegel, and that is burying the lead if you know comic book lore, and if you don't, it's just a name. But he was given a POI designation at that time. We go to a second interview after this that we find that this all sort of checks out. We start asking, can you fly? Do you possess any form of X-ray or heat vision? And basically, we found out that we found several of Siegel's works in the apartment of this skip, and asked if any of the stories were true. Said no, pretty much all of it's made up or exaggerated, embellished to look pretty, when did you realize that these graphic illustrations were about you? And he said, it was several years after the first one. Figured it was a funny coincidence till I did my research. Found out the writer was none other. And we asked, did you confront him? And he said, no, the truth is I've sort of engrossed myself into this fantasy. And we asked him to elaborate. And he says, you know what I majored in, Doc? Accounting. That prison was only slightly better than this place. More importantly, it wasn't my place. The occupation didn't matter. The income didn't matter. None of it did, as long as I could do this, and breaks his restraints at the wrist. 2 guards charge, and the doctor says, get back. He's not causing any harm. The skip says, why God gave me these inflictions I couldn't understand. But these stories pop up. It convinced me I was part of something greater. Convinced me that I had a higher calling. The little grifter basically told me I was a gift to the world. And we figure out at this point that, this is what makes him do these vigilante activities, and that he's sort of, after a while, lumped all of these bad guys together: drug dealers, murderers, rapists. You forget that they're people, and you forget to control yourself. I'm supposed to be a hero, right? And what kind of hero would do the things that I did? And afterwards, we have the recovery incident. This is the last collapsible, and this is what led to this Skip turning himself in to the Foundation. More to the point, turning himself into local authorities. There were two, a man and his son, the son of a cocaine trafficker. The Skip had followed them into their apartment with the intent to apprehend them, and breaking into the apartment, the 15-year-old son snuck up on the Skip with a gun. The Skip was startled and attacked the young man. Single punch, crushing the chest wall, and the side wall of the right ventricle of the heart was sandwiched between the cartilage of two vertebrae and ruptured, and that is how they died. We administer Class A amnestics to all individuals involved. We planted a cover investigation which framed the father as a murder suspect, and went to trial the following month, and we recovered the Skip without incident. And so what we have is an interrogation log from the police lieutenant and our Skip, saying, we found no weapons on you, nothing at the crime scene except for the gun the kid had, no bullet wounds, so how the hell did you cave that kid's guts in? And no response, mumbles a little bit, and our lieutenant says, speak up, for Christ's sake. The Skip says, I punched him. The lieutenant says, you punched him? Jesus, you didn't know when to stop? The guy said, just once. Really? How the fuck could one punch do that? The Skip says, I didn't watch myself. I just watched him hold his kid. I couldn't save him. I'm a hero. I can't save them. And the lieutenant was amnesticized. We go to the residence of our Skip, and we confiscate several items: a copy of Action Comics number 1, 5, 57, 254, Man of Steel number 1, a flashlight, a red coat, and a blue long-sleeve t-shirt. End article. Now, my initial response to this piece was I didn't care for being so beaten over the head that this was real-life Superman, but I had a little time to think it over, and I don't dislike it as much on that front at this point. This article made no bones about that part of it. And that's not really the intent of it. It goes deeper than just, this is Superman in real life. It's more that Superman is still around, walks among us, as it were, and more to the point, has seen some shit, and is very much human, and is very much humanized by these events. And that is the twist that I think not just anybody can do. A lot of new writers, this is a first-time piece, I want to reiterate that. A lot of first-timers, if they had the idea, I'm going to make Superman a Skip, would do it in a far worse way than this. There would be, just going over he can do this and that, and probably have him fight the Foundation or something stupid like that. This was a man pushed to breaking and turned himself into the authorities because he felt like a murderer. I think this is actually a very powerful piece. It's a beautiful piece, and I'm excited to see more from this writer. Now, in doing my research for this in the Sandbox, this work was quite literally hundreds of revisions in the Sandbox. So I get it. I mean, I have no room to talk. I haven't written anything new in 3 years, so things take as long as they take, and I hope that is something that new writers keep track of, that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Nobody's going to remember that you got your first piece up the same day you joined the site. I don't even call out such things, and I think I pay more attention to first-time entries than most. The fact is, people will remember a good work for far longer than a quick work, and getting lots of ideas out there and have, that's not necessarily preferable to having one idea or one core piece that you feel very strongly about and that you can put your best effort into writing about and having something good and beautiful come from it. So this piece it does a lot from a very simple base premise and does it really well. I will reiterate, be very careful with your object classes when you explain the work, as this one did. If Superman was, simply an extreme case of a myostatin-related genetic mutation, that's actually believable. And if we don't have anything to the contrary, and all of the numbers line up, this is an explained skip. This is not Euclid. So be careful with that. I want, and for that matter, actually, yeah, I want to see that addressed. I want to see it either challenged further on, if we have an edit down the road that tries to explain why they might still be anomalous, or, do you do the tough thing and make this an EX? I don't know. The voting pattern up to this point, this is at plus 41, and not a lot of people actually calling that out. I'm kind of surprised, but nonetheless, what the hell? I really like this work, and for a first-time piece, this is good. This is a plus one after quite a bit of deliberation. This was very nearly a no vote, but it's good. And if I'm by myself in having an issue with object classes being inconclusive, then, that's the rest of the work is good enough that I still want to see it addressed. I'd really like to see it addressed, but it's a plus one from me. Moving on, SCP-4139, titled Fridge Backpack, written by Gibbon Man, and it just came up in the chat. We have 3 first-timer entries this week. This is number 2 of 3, and we have an image of a fridge. Looks to be a fairly old fridge. Interesting thing about it is it has what looks like a combination lock on the left side of it. It looks like 10 buttons, 10 or 12. Kind of fancy for a refrigerator. It's also got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces of paper in various doodles in looks like Sharpie marker on them, and it looks like a couple of fridge magnets stuck to it as well, and a caption that reads SCP-4139. So we have a fridge with an object class of safe and procedures that indicate that it's to be kept in secure containment lockup with all of the 4139-1 through 6 attached at Site 45, and the password to the combo lock is restricted to Level 2 personnel. If it exhibits unusual noises or rocking, Research Leader Samuels must be contacted along with Site Security to allow for acquisition of POI 326. Interesting. So the description says that the skip is a medium-sized, white, single-door fridge freezer of unknown brand. I don't love the tone there. Fridge is a little too colloquial to let that pass for the wiki. You can call it a refrigerator. I don't think this is a fridge and freezer. Having sold appliances in a past life, there's nothing on here to indicate this is anything more than a refrigerator, and I don't think it makes any mention of a freezer throughout the rest of this. So small things, but the difference between good and great can be made up of small things. Dash 1 through 6 refers to 6 crude drawings of people and objects in various activities, and apart from the electric combo lock affixed to the front door, the skip has no electrical components. The back of the skip consists of a small assembly of pipes ending in 2 curved openings. So the little pieces of paper, the little drawings, act as a control board for the fridge. The manipulation of their placement on the front of the fridge can alter its properties, and these properties take effect when they're connected to the fridge through magnets. And the fridge functions as a non-anomalous fridge, cooling at 1.6 C as long as the pieces of paper are attached to it, And we have some trial and error that we've done. And this is actually, we go to a table of various positions and outcomes with the 6 drawings and what happens. One thing that might be an oversight, matter of fact, is almost certainly an oversight, is so we have the header for this collapsible, and the right side says outcome, which is correct. The left side, above all of the little drawings, says SCP-fridge-2 position. I feel like this got missed in the moving to the main site because there is no -2, and there is, we should be referring to this as SCP-4139. So it's little things like that. It happens to everybody. Not a big deal, but it should go back and make some corrections along those lines. But we have different placement of the drawings and various things that happen when those positions are figured out. So we're just kind of trial and erroring this. We have one configuration that causes the holes on the back of the fridge to release something similar to Class A amnestic gas. Another position decreases the weight of the fridge by a factor of 12, and straps emerge from the back of it, allowing it to be carried. Oh, what was the name of this thing? Fridge backpack. So we have another combination of these, that the internal topography of the fridge increases, so it becomes sort of spatially anomalous. The inside then measures 10 meters by 6 meters by 50 meters, and leaving the door open while this takes place pauses its growth and causes the skip to emit regular beeping. One position causes it to rust. Sticking all the drawings on top of each other increases the weight by a factor of 4. And that all this kind of goes on, and we have we estimate there's somewhere between 50 to 9,900 different phenomena possible. I initially thought this was going into like they were trying to set up a collaboration log, and I was ready to roll my eyes and move on, but that's not what happened. We have an addendum 2 that is a transcript of an audio-video log from the raid on POI 426's apartment, where we discover the fridge. This is a raid log from MTF Delta 10 Wanderers, and this is taking place in Australia, and this team is apparently trained in handling alchemy and thaumaturgy and that sort of fun stuff. So this is an attempt. We were tipped off by a mole working for Dr. Wondertainment to the location of this POI, and we were attempting to apprehend them. And this is a good little log. It's kind of dense. I'm gonna gloss over it a bit, but it's good. It gives a bit of humanity to the MTF. They make a few mistakes. Nothing fatal, but certainly problematic. It does sort of set the stage for things going a little off the deep end. Our POI does show up, and they're running down the walkway to the fridge. They open the fridge while rearranging the drawings, and we shoot the POI in the leg. He collapses into the open door. We run to the fridge as it closes. We open the fridge, which is now full of carrots and potatoes, and they tumble out, knocking over the MTF member. And due to the large vegetable mass in the room when collecting the skip and the disorderly actions of Delta 10, the order of the drawings used by the POI and his escape is unknown. Knocking and muffled vocalizations were heard originating from inside 4139 roughly 30 days after procurement of the skip, and due to the possibility that the POI may still be inside, testing of the 1 through 6. Ooh, we have a SCP-XXX here. That needs fixing. But testing of the drawings has been deemed top priority in discovering the whereabouts of our POI. End article. So we were doing this nice build-up of a fancy fridge, and it has all these gee whiz things that it can do. We're doing it to try and get this guy out, and interrogate them. I like that as a little twist done at the last possible minute to change the complexion of the piece. It's really clever, and it all works really well. And I really encourage you, go back and read these 4139 audio video log transcripts, because it is the dialogue's good and the action is very well paced, and we have little mistakes made, little humanizing, and I really like it. Outside of that, there are some mistakes. This is a first time piece, and that does show in a few places. We have an XXX that needs to be removed and changed to 4139. We have this SCP-Fridge-2 that needs to be fixed. But these are minor things, and they're things that, anything you can fix with a minor edit of spelling, punctuation, and grammar, that sort of stuff, probably not worth withholding a +1 from, and I'm not going to here. This is far more good than bad, and this is a +1 from me. Moving on, we have SCP-4206, titled The Weighing of the Heart, written by Dr. Annoying Dog and Uncle Nicolini. High hopes for this going in. What we have at the very top is a notice that says that the following anomaly is partially neutralized, and information no longer pertinent to its active status has been rendered in green. We have no images through the piece, just that note that it is partially neutralized. So it has an object class of Euclid and procedures that indicate it's stored in a low priority anomalous objects locker, and the 56 instances of -1 are contained in Site 19's intensive animal care unit. They are to be fed pureed dry dog food and walked on the underwater treadmill for 20 minutes daily. We then have a sentence: all requests for donor organs are to be forwarded to -1 surgical team on a daily basis. It's an interesting set of procedures. There are three little passages here separated by line breaks. Collectively, they have absolutely nothing in common. So it's stored in a locker. 56 instances of -1 are contained in intensive animal care, and all requests for donor organs are to be forwarded to their surgical team on a daily basis. It's a lot to take in from a very small set of procedures. The description indicates that it is that the skip itself is an embalmer's mask sculpted in the likeness of the ancient Egyptian deity Anubis, and the mask is composed of a material made up of layers of papyrus covered in plaster and lax eye holes. And we have this section that is rendered in green, indicating that it is no longer relevant. It says, when a cadaver is brought within 10 meters of the skip, the anomaly will autonomously move via telekinetic force towards it and affix itself onto the subject's head. And after it does this, the mask will tilt upwards and expel the cadaver's remaining internal organs through its nostrils. And this process takes between 20 and 35 minutes. Cadavers affected by the skip will rapidly dehydrate and become mummified. If multiple cadavers are present within 10 meters, the anomaly will repeat this process until all of them have been mummified. And the organs expelled during this process will rapidly transform into -1. And that is the extent of our no longer relevant procedures, or description, I suppose. So the -1 is now described as genetically identical to African golden wolves, though lacking natural internal organs. Instead, the organs of the -1 are composed exclusively of a singular human organ corresponding to the one that it was created from. And despite this, they require care and feeding and produce waste, and organs collected from the instances match the blood type of the human body they were ejected from. So when an organ is removed from the body, it will regrow within 2 to 3 weeks, and this collectively has facilitated organ transplants necessary for injured or ill Foundation personnel. And there's one instance of -1 per blood type for heart, lungs, kidneys, liver, pancreas, intestines, and stomach. And we have one more passage in green that says all instances created from the brain are to be humanely euthanized. So that's a lot to take in. We have wolves that lack internal organs. Instead, they are a single human organ corresponding to the cadaver's blood type, and we have basically a full set of blood types and major transplantable organs. And below this, we have a thing. It says today's scheduled surgeries. So organ, kidney, 32, name, champ, health conditions, canine cognitive dysfunction syndrome, muscular atrophy, blindness, and deafness. We have 23 hearts being collected from Queenie, who suffers from muscular atrophy, blindness, and deafness, and 13 stomachs from a wolf named Beans that suffers from canine cognitive dysfunction syndrome, muscular atrophy, blindness, deafness, arthritis, and neurodermatitis. And below this, we have we have minutes from the ethics committee and a hearing regarding SCP-4206. And this is I'm gonna pause for a minute because it's still like it's a lot to wrap your head around. It's a lot to try to consider that what we've created here. This organ farm from animals, from wolves, from canines, and this we have a dateline on this these minutes from the ethics committee, date of September 1st, 2120. And we begin the case, and we have the doctor wanting to cut to the chase, the one that submitted the complaint, and said that this is just unsustainable. By the year 2200, they aren't going to be able to grow organs back at any rate that comes even close to keeping up with what the demand will be. Last time I was here, you told me that the current 10-year plan involved researching body augments. Here we are. I don't see augments everywhere. What's the new plan? So we have a dialogue between this doctor and they're both doctors, but one's the officiator and one is the person bringing the complaint forward. And the doctor that is in charge of these wolves is quite distraught by the state of things, because we can't euthanize them, but we can at least make their miserable lives slightly less miserable by not cutting into them every 5 minutes. Their scars aren't even healed by the time we have to cut them open again, and we can't even put them under. So this is really terrifying. Like, this is really this bothers me quite a lot, honestly. Like, I have an enormous soft spot when it comes to dogs. Like, my dog is still recovering from surgery, and the mental image this makes it's really like outrageous. Like, you would understand somebody really not being able to stand for this. And what we basically get told from the ethics committee is tough shit. This is the best we can come up with under the circumstances, and it's we could bring up alternatives. We could do human testing. How long it would take to grow a fully functioning human organ in a controlled environment? Years. And we may have all the time in the world, but putting 2 people through suffering for the better part of a decade just to spare your wolves and surgical staff a few hours of pain is not ethical. And to which the plaintiff responds, the technology to make it faster and easier can be achieved if you would focus funding into researching it. And but what we would be pursuing is the possibility of it being achievable. There's no guarantee. We know these wolves work. That's why we've decided to continue their use despite the unfortunate implications, to which the plaintiff says that's hardly ethical. And the ethics committee responds, you were not hired to worry about what is and what is not ethical. You were hired to oversee the organ harvesting process of SCP-4206-1, a duty I suggest you busy yourself with. Furthermore, I would suggest you no longer attempt to file further cases regarding the same topic, as it is eating away at the committee's time. I don't want to threaten disciplinary action, but I'm afraid I have few means left of discouraging you. I'm sorry we cannot help you further at this time. You and I both know this isn't the same world anymore. Things change, and things will continue to change. Our plaintiff responds, unbelievable. And last line. Oh, one more thing. This is from the ethics committee. Happy 153rd birthday. We have a link to the End of Death Hub. End log. End article. God, there's a lot to take in on this. The first thing to take in is I am apparently a huge sucker for the End of Death canon. there's so much to explore in it, and all of the existential horror available in it is just like it's ripe for the picking. And this is a thoroughly disturbing piece. Like, this is one of these that will stick with you for a while. It is, the mental picture is almost unbearable. It's really rough for anybody that's, soft-hearted when it comes to animals. The picture's painted really well by this plaintiff. These little passages, their scars aren't even healed by the time we have to cut them open again, and we can't even put them under. They start kicking and screaming the moment they smell their own blood. It's really, it's rough stuff. It's done really well, and this is quite good from a perspective of being pure visceral horror. Well done. Very well done. This is a pretty straightforward +1. I have no real complaints here. There is nothing jumping out at me. Like, there's a comma missing between lungs and kidneys. That is about the biggest thing I've got out of the entire work. This is solid as a rock. Very well done, guys. Easy +1. Moving on. SCP-4122, titled The Second Long Pipe, and this was written by Schumacher, and this is the third first-timer piece this week. That's a first for me. There are no images in this work, no format screws, no CSS. It's kind of refreshing, not gonna lie. And it's interesting because at this point I've noticed a real what seems to be a cause and effect between certain CSS themes and higher ratings. And I don't know if it's because it's the same group of people that are applying the themes and getting more attention. I'm not sure. I haven't quite pieced it together, but this is interesting in its simplicity at this point, which is wild, like how much we've come to use those tropes in, I would say, the last year. Having a simple, straightforward piece anymore is a breath of fresh air. So we have no images and an object class of safe and a short 3-sentence set of procedures. The skip is to be stored in a standard locked safe deposit box. Access is restricted, requiring written permission from 2 level 4 personnel. Testing with SCP-4122 is prohibited. That's it. The description indicates that it is a section of PVC pipe, 9 centimeters in diameter, 17 centimeters long. An arrow is drawn on the side of the object in black permanent marker, and housed within this pipe is a temporal anomaly. It shifts objects passing through it 1 second into the future or past, depending on the direction of travel. Objects passing through it in the direction of the arrow, the forward direction, travel into the future. Objects passing in the opposite direction travel into the past. And we recovered this from the possession of a man in Australia who'd been using the object to duplicate currency. He claimed to have retrieved the skip from a house in the suburbs. After being hired to perform maintenance work on the building's stormwater system, he couldn't recall the exact location, and we have not been able to locate the house. Now, this entire passage beyond saying it was a tradesman who'd been using the object to duplicate currency could probably be removed because it does not advance the story, and the short length of this actually, I think, works to its credit at first glance. It has some collapsible logs that expand the length quite a bit, but it doesn't do anything really for the story, and I think the brevity would be more beneficial than the exposition because there is no real exposition from it. So what we have immediately after this is an addendum of test logs that we go through a couple of ping pong balls, a ruler, and we try to, sort of figure it out. Now, what is interesting after we tried to get a duplicate of an item. So we were to instruct a research assistant to drop a ball through 4122, but stop when a duplicate emerges out the other end. So about about 3/4 of a second before the ball was to be dropped, a duplicate instance emerged, and we have a high-pitched sound and a brief puff of air that wasn't observed in any of the earlier tests. That was all noted when the duplicate ball emerged. We have a footnote here that says see Addendum B audio analysis report. And we analyzed the ping pong balls. We could find no difference. And from this, we confirm the object has the ability to duplicate small items. We go through a few more tests. Through test 19, we try to drop a lab rat through the pipe, but again, stop when a duplicate emerges. And we do this again. Again, we have a high-pitched sound and a puff of air. The comparative analysis found both instances of the subject to be identical. So we try it again with a human. We try to push the right hand of a D class through the pipe in the backwards direction. The subject went to follow instructions, flinched and pulled his hand back when the duplicate emerged. This hand was cleanly severed at the wrist, accompanied by a high-pitched sound and a puff of air consistent with previous tests. There's no difference found between the severed duplicate hand and the subject's actual hand beyond the results of it being detached from the subject's body, and we postpone testing at this point until we can clean up all of the blood. Now, we go from this. This is actually quite a lengthy set of test logs that I've shortened up quite a bit. We have audio analysis results. So it doesn't initially say what we are analyzing, but the description says we had that high-pitched sound that we've made mention of. We slowed it down about 30 times and dropped the pitch to match, and what we find is voices identified as those of our research assistant, a doctor on site, and the D class that we just tried to push their hand through. So this is, and this is just an audio log. This is what we hear the this high-pitched noise. The audio analysis, when slowed down and the pitch dropped to be audible, is the researcher saying it didn't come out. Wasn't it supposed to? And the doctor says, Schumacher, the walls. And Schumacher says, what? Oh, they're red. And the doctor says, I noticed. And a noise consisting of hundreds of plastic popping noises can be heard increasing in volume. Very distant shouting can also be made out. And our researcher says, Doctor, there are ping pong balls coming out of the walls. Is this part of the test? Should we log this? The doctor says, no, I think we should be leaving before... Oh, shit. And the researcher says, Doctor, oh my God, Doctor, you two, hang on, I'm going to get you out of here. And the doctor says, this is really painful, and begins a string of profanity before being cut off by choking noises. The background noise increases to a roar. Our doctor, our research, Doctor, no, don't go, come back. Oh my God, the floor is disintegrating. No, it's pulling me down. Help, please, someone help. The cries continue for approximately 8 seconds, during which the background noise continues to increase in volume before the audio passes beyond the discernible range, and we end the transcript. We have one more transcript here. It is almost the exact same thing. It didn't come out. Schumacher, the walls. What? Oh, they're furry. I noticed. And they're moving. I noticed that too. A noise consisting of a combination of squeaking, hissing, chattering, and plopping noises can be heard increasing in volume in the background. Very distant screaming can also be made out. Schumacher says, Doctor, I think I'd like to leave now. Weir says, they're not just coming out of the wall. They're taking matter from the wall. This entire building is going to fall apart. Oh, the roof. Oh my God, Doctor, they're falling out of the roof. We're going to be buried in rats. I don't want to be buried in rats. And it's not just the building. The doctor... He's losing matter to become one of these lab rats that comes out the other end of the pipe. And Schumacher is positioning very close to the object, says, listen to me, stop testing the pipe. You need to stop testing SCP-4, and his voice is choked off as if something has blocked their mouth. This is followed by 6 seconds of muffled screaming before audio passes beyond the discernible range. End transcript. Note, testing of 4122 has been discontinued indefinitely by order of 059. End article. So I like this because it is very much, from our side of things, a mundane thing. And this is a good little example, a good little piece of the Foundation not fully knowing the consequences of their actions and testing anyway. It is a common thing, perhaps more common in the old days of the site, but the testing has historically been very fast and loose. And in this instance, we are potentially, presumably, hurting ourselves in, an alternate universe or something along those lines. It's really well done. There are, and it's that sort of this needless testing. It says redundant tests redacted for brevity through this test log, and it goes 1, 2, 7, 8, 15, 16, 19, 22. So we've done a lot of testing, presumably put this alternate universe version of the Foundation through absolute hell, where matter is coming from all of the things in the test chamber to, go out this pipe. Really fascinating stuff. And it doesn't explain a lot, and I think that's okay. I don't think this really needed to. It is a good piece just the same, and we've had some really promising first-timer pieces this week. All three of you did outstanding, really excited, and really want to see more from each of you. This is a +1 from me. Now, last but not least, and far from the least, this is one of the best works I've read in a long time, is SCP-4979, In the Grim Darkness of the Far Future, written by Dr. Chandra. We have the new CSS theme and an object class of safe, no pictures anywhere in this piece, and procedures that indicate that all instances are to be left in the facility in which they were discovered. Provisional Site 4979. Skip instances with defective cerebral support systems may be placed within on-site cryo-storage units to prevent further deterioration. At present, the 4979 budget does not allow for sufficient cryo-storage units to accommodate all 4979 instances with defective support systems, so medical triage is to be implemented. Access is restricted to personnel with level 3 clearance. No individuals with any degree of psionic telepathy are to come into contact with the skip, and personnel assigned to the skip may be amnesticized upon transfer if requested. It's a little ominous. Little ominous, to say the least. 4979 is described as a collection of approximately 750,000 disembodied human brains. Each instance of them is held within a 10-liter pouch made of medical-grade plastic, suspended in a synthetic cerebrospinal fluid, which is continually circulated and sterilized by recycling units imbued with a mild ectroentropic properties, which allow them to function indefinitely without loss of usable fluid, making 4979 a closed loop. Each pouch also possesses its own cardiopulmonary unit, which oxygenates and circulates blood through the cerebral and basilar arteries of each 4979 instance. So we have disembodied human brains suspended in cerebrospinal fluid with appropriately circulating fluids and oxygenated blood, and 750,000 of them. It's a staggering mental image. We go from this to the next sentence. Due to a variety of damages and malfunctions, this cerebral support system is no longer functional in approximately 38% of 4979 instances. Each brain has been fitted with a lattice of unknown thomically conductive alloy and an electrothomic central processing unit designated -A, and the workings of -A are anomalous and poorly understood, but they appear to draw their power from the brain's own EVE emissions. This links to a GOC supplement, but we don't really need to know much about that to still appreciate where we are now. Now, this goes on to say that we recovered documents from this site. GOI 7975, the Fixer-Uppers, was a cartel of back-alley parasurgeons. They began performing these procedures shortly after the onset of the Omega K scenario. End of Death. God, I love End of Death. So we believe that the GOI targeted individuals suffering from previously life-ending injuries without any hope of recovery or receiving a donor body. So we recover a flyer advertising the procedure, and it basically says, your body's going to get grow old, sick, broken. Living forever doesn't have to be a fate worse than death. Why remain tethered to such a fragile thing? We can free your mind, literally. Achieve true transhumanity by discarding your mortal coil and focusing on the only part of you that truly matters, your brain. Our team of highly skilled professionals will transplant your brain into our state-of-the-art cerebral support system and plug it into the most advanced simulated reality designed to date. Call today to discuss our very reasonable financing options. Paradise awaits. It's a lot to take in. If you're into transhumanist stuff, this is really this is something you could potentially see in however many 100 years. It's all downhill from here. This gets into some of the best pure horror. I'll come back to that. So we have an addendum. Dash A, the CPU, appears that it was intended to detect neural activity of the brain attached to it and provide targeted stimulation for the purpose of simulating sensory input. Dash A appears to have also once possessed Wi-Fi capability for brain-to-brain and brain-to-hardware communication. This function is now inoperable in all instances. So you would presume that if it had this networking capability, it was meant to provide, for lack of a better term, a multiplayer experience. But now that's inoperable in all instances. All of these brains, all of these sensory inputs are alone, and presumably have been alone for quite some time. These Dash A's were mass-produced without any individual customization. The removal of individual brains and implantation of these CPUs seems to have often been crude and careless, typically resulting in brain damage, inflammation, and scarring. As a result of these factors, in addition to the substandard design of the Dash A, the sensory feedback they originally provided was of much poorer quality than baseline human senses. As such, SCIP instances often suffered various degrees of sensory deprivation, and this effect is believed to have worsened over time as that thalamic lattice connecting them gradually became corroded and displaced within the brain, weakening signal strength further, resulting in electrothalamic misfires. The Dash A has also been shown to promote the formation of amyloid plaques within the brain, causing nearly all 4979 instances to suffer from some form of neurodegenerative dementia. This is also suspected to be a potential leading cause of Alzheimer's disease. The research being done in that vein is absolutely fascinating stuff. But the inclusion of that the installation of this anomalous CPU in the brain may inadvertently promote the formation of amyloid plaques, which we know are not good news. We know that right now without a doubt. It's really, really terrifying. We believe the GOI continued to accumulate these brains up until the early 22nd century. A newly introduced brain contaminated the recycling system with an antiseptic resistant strain of herpes simplex. This strain rapidly spread throughout the recycling system and infected all SCP-4979 instances, causing severe encephalitis, damaging these CPU units even further. And this is believed to be when the Dash A lost their wireless capabilities, isolating each of these instances from both the outside world and each other. And rather than attempt repairs, the GOI chose to abandon the facility. It was discovered by the Foundation in 2138. 4979 instances were believed to have gone over 30 years without any external contact. All instances show evidence of extreme atrophy and trauma, as well as biological decay. Where the cerebral support system has failed, multiple attempts at communication have been made. All have failed to receive a lucid response. The lack of direct communications makes proper diagnosis difficult, but EEGs and spectral CT scans indicate instances universally possess strong neural coordinates of a myriad of psychological and neurological disorders, most notably severe post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. 30 years alone. 30 years with your brain receiving nothing but faulty signals, and oh my god. So while all of these Dash A units remain functional, they no longer appear to provide any coherent sensory input. Our neuroscientists have concluded the stimulation they provide is most likely interpreted as extremely agitating with no concrete meaning, and since these brains are universally experiencing such high distress, the energy they generate is extremely negative, which the CPU units then channel back into them, creating a positive feedback loop of perpetually increasing noxious input. Evaluation of the brains have ruled out any degree of meaningful rehabilitation. All attempts at regeneration or reconstruction have proven futile. The Dash A's are so deeply rooted into these brains that any attempt to remove them would result in even greater neurological damage, nor does there appear to be any method of deactivating them. They're also too severely damaged to be integrated into any form of donor bodies, biological, robotic, or virtual. Even if this was not the case, their advanced state of cognitive deterioration makes any kind of normal interaction completely possible. Our last sentence. Lacking any other alternatives, the Ethics Committee has ruled that SCP-4979 is to be left undisturbed as much as possible. End article. This is some of the best pure existential horror I have ever read on this site. This sets a future and an existence that is utterly, overwhelmingly terrifying. No part of this was overlooked. This is I'm dumbstruck. This is let's start here. This is criminally underrated. This is at plus 46 right now. This deserves some real attention. When we start talking about awards, when we start talking about Article of the Year, when we start talking about things that I'm going to point to for, hey, what's the best work you've seen out of Series 5? This is it. This does not attempt to include anything more than is needed to tell this really horrific story. It doesn't try to pander in any way. It doesn't bring in super popular GOIs. It leans on this end of death canon to set the stage for why this is even worse than it would be under normal circumstances, because these brains are at this point physically incapable of dying, and we have ruled they're to be left alone. They've been alone for 30 years, no interaction, demented, it's absolutely horrible, and I love it. This is, I say a lot that I don't have enough good things to say about a piece. We could do this for the next 20 minutes. Suffice it to say, this is absolutely outstanding. This is the sort of thing that I want to see on the site. This is so thoroughly engrossing and well done. Very, very well done. That's a wrap. That's week 15. I am on schedule for week 16 next Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. In the meantime, please go read these works. These guys put a lot of effort into them, and good work from the first timers, good work from our established veterans, and week 16, I'll see you then. Keep reading, keep writing.